The Criterion Collection is coming through town today, and I thought I'd stop in and make my picks, but the line was cut off before they opened at 8:30 this morning, and I guess the last few days it's been like 7-hour wait times anyway. So it's definitely not happening for me. But I've taken a look at the list, and I've made some picks that I would take if I were able to get inside the closet. The Criterion Mobile Closet is a traveling version of the famous Criterion Closet, a collection of films maintained by the Criterion Collection and stocked with hundreds of classic and contemporary movies. Created as a mobile replica of the original closet at Criterion's New York headquarters, it tours cities and film festivals across the United States and Canada, giving fans an opportunity to browse Criterion releases in person. Visitors can step inside, explore the collection, select a limited number of films to purchase, and even create their own Closet Picks experience inspired by the popular video series featuring filmmakers, actors, and other cinema enthusiasts. So the first one I'd go with is RoboCop. Paul Verhoeven ultra-violent classic from the 1980s. I loved it as an action flick as a kid. Buckaroo Banzai was one of my favorite movies growing up, and seeing Peter Weller in a different role was exciting for me. As a kid, a lot of the satire and social commentary was definitely lost on me. Just enjoyed it as an action flick, but as I grew older, it's sort of like his other work, Starship Troopers. Really grew to appreciate that one. The violence in the movie was about 10 times anything I'd ever seen. In particular, I do remember having nightmares about the guy who gets covered in toxic waste and then gets absolutely liquefied getting hit by a car. Chasing Amy was another one I loved. It came out while I was in high school. I was a huge fan of Kevin Smith following Clerks and Mallrats. Like, his dialogue was absolutely next level. And back in high school, I kind of had a thing for like the underdog, and this was definitely a return to more independent filmmaking following Mallrats, which I think was kind of a big budget thing. Not huge, but bigger than he had for Clerks for sure. I loved how he leaned into comic book culture in this one. The performances he got out of the leads, Jason Lee, Ben Affleck, and Joey Lauren Adams, were just spectacular. No Country for Old Men is probably the newest film on my list. I was a huge fan of the Coen brothers growing up. Raising Arizona, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Big Lebowski. Those were just incredible films that we watched a ton when I was growing up. But No Country for Old Men is obviously a very different feel. The darkness with minimal humor was definitely something different from them, and the ending is definitely abrupt, and you're left wondering what just happened, and I think it took me a while to figure out that was kind of the point, but I love that one. Life of Brian, this was one that I watched quite a bit once I finally found it in high school growing up. Played a lot of Magic the Gathering with a lot of what you might call nerdy people, and a lot of them were huge fans, making constant references to Holy Grail. So I eventually caught that at a midnight showing, and probably a couple months later, they threw up another Monty Python film that I wasn't familiar with, Life of Brian, and loved this one. Like, even as a kid with no real appreciation for satire or anything like that, it was just funny the way they would poke at Christianity. Depending on your upbringing, you're familiar with some of the details of those biblical tales, but seeing them poke fun at it is just an absolute treat. So there was this girl in college that invited me over one night to watch Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and I absolutely loved the movie. Like, John Cameron Mitchell knocked it out of the park with it. I know it was a musical before that. I guess he and Stephen Trask had sort of like met by chance on a plane or something like that, and kind of talked and worked out the details, and then put together this amazing story with excellent music. Yeah, some of the songs on here are just incredible, like Origin of Love, Midnight Radio, Wig in a Box. That one is a real hoot. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was another one that we watched a lot growing up. It was actually a movie that we as kids loved, but my dad also just loved watching this one, and that was kind of what gave me an appreciation for like the broad audience that Tim Burton could cater to. It kind of laid the groundwork for like those future protagonists in his films who would be sort of like the maybe not underdog, but they were definitely outcasts, or at least outsiders. Yeah, misunderstood, and this kind of did it in a little bit more humorous way than some of his others. Obviously, Paul Rubens lent himself to that. But yeah, I loved watching this one when I was growing up. I watched a little bit of the Pee-wee's Playhouse show when it came out afterwards, but without that real world contrast, which is what Tim Burton brings to it, it's just it's less interesting. Okay, and the final one I want to talk about is Spinal Tap, because this was just such a fun world to get into. It was my introduction to the mockumentary genre, which Christopher Guest kills. Like, Waiting for Guthman, A Mighty Wind, which is, another musical one, where he plays a completely different character. And that's one of those things that these mockumentaries really highlight of Christopher Guest, like the range and talent that this guy has, incredible. And I know the sequel came out last year, and it was, as far as I understand, the last work we were going to receive from Rob Reiner, who tragically passed away. But the original film, have to pull this one out of here, because this was a classic that poked fun at rock and roll in a way we hadn't seen before, and man, it's just such a blast. Like I said, I would have liked to have gotten into the Criterion Closet, but the lines were just crazy, which I think that's a good thing, because the fact that there's this many people out here supporting film and craft and all of that, like, it's wonderful to see. Like, yeah, it does mean that maybe I'm not going to be able to participate at the level that I want with all these little things like the Criterion Closet, but that's better for film overall. And so I'm glad they came through town, and I hope you at least got something out of listening to me talk about some of the picks I would have made if I'd gotten into the closet. I guarantee they're not as sophisticated as you would hear from some other film buffs, but they were films that meant a lot to me, and seeing them in the Criterion Collection, I felt it was like a good opportunity to shed some light on them. So yeah, if the Criterion Closet comes through your part of town, definitely try to get in line early. Like I said, the woman I talked to earlier said that they opened at 8:30 this morning, and the line was actually technically already cut off at that point. So you really got to wake up early if you want to get in on the action here. But good luck to y'all. Hope to see some of your videos and some of your picks from the Criterion Collection. Have a good day.